This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast at talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I'm Rob.
It's episode 84. We're 2 men down at the moment, but they will be joining us in a little bit, so expect a nice awkward segue from 2 hosts to 4. I'm sure that
it might be 2 to 3 to 4. We don't know.
Yeah, they probably won't synchronise their drop in, will they? That'll be,
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, that's not a thing that will happen. Okay, unusually this week we have no thank yous and no reviews at the top of the show because not a lot has happened. Yes, not that I don't want to thank people. In fact, I will thank the people. There's at least 2 additional subscribers on YouTube, but again, I can't see because they have their subscription details private. So if you are one of those 2 people, then thank you very much. If you're not, ignore this message.
Yes, thank you.
It will self-destruct in 5 seconds. If you do want to leave us, a review and get it read out on the show, then do so by heading to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it's called today. Leave us a 5-star review in there, and we will apply the Ron Burgundy policy to that. So whatever you write in a 5-star review, we'll read verbatim as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote something like your own podcast or a blog, that might be where to do it. So we can get straight into listener comms, I think, Rob, seeing as we're through all the housekeeping stuff there. So we've got quite a few bits this week and some really interesting stuff to get our teeth into. There's plenty of Obi-Wan talk this week, which will be a lot of fun.
Yes.
So first up is from Dave Donovan. So he sent me this message. He probably doesn't remember it because I think it came through just about the time we were recording last week. So it's a bit of a rollover.
Okay.
So he says, my mind is racing with possibilities. What if they're making Rey Obi-Wan's granddaughter and they do a Hobbit on it? The Hobbit starts with the old/original Bilbo telling Frodo in the present day, I never told you the truth, and it dissolves into the past and young Bilbo. And then you have the film, the Star Wars film, start off with Luke sitting Rey down and telling her the tale of Obi-Wan Kenobi, perhaps from his journals.
Okay.
And then it dissolves into the past, and we go from there, with Luke starting as the narrator. Dave's comment is that could be awesome. So a bit of a breakdown on this one. What do you make of Dave's idea for an Obi-Wan movie kicking off with Luke telling Rey about Obi-Wan's exploits? Rob?
Yes.
What do you make of that, mate? What do you think of that?
I like the sort of, looking back on the history from a narrator's point of view. I'm not sure about the Kenobi granddaughter thing because I feel like that changes too much about what we know about Obi-Wan. I'm already kind of skeptical that we're going to be kind of treading too much over his established backstory. I wasn't wildly thrilled about how they did it in Clone Wars and had him sort of tease the idea that he was going to leave the Jedi Order and stuff, because it felt like he always struck me as somebody who, he kind of understood that they were not without their flaws because he was obviously a Qui-Gon pupil, but he always struck me as somebody who was kind of doing his best to improve things from within rather than just going, forget it, she's pretty.
Yeah, I do. I get your point. I would say that with Obi-Wan, how old would you say Obi-Wan is in The Phantom Menace? Sort of mid-20s? Maybe about 24?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
So he's sort of spent that part of his life almost at odds with Qui-Gon, isn't he? He's almost sort of saying, oh, come on, will you just try and toe the line a little bit? So I guess he probably doesn't see things entirely Qui-Gon's way. It's only after Qui-Gon's death that he starts to expand his thinking a little bit and adopts more of Qui-Gon's practices when he's applying them to Anakin's training.
Yeah.
So the rebellious nature, depending on, because I can't really remember completely the timeline in the Clone Wars and his relationship with Satine. Was it pre Qui-Gon's death or was it post Qui-Gon's death? I think it was pre, wasn't it?
It would have been post, wouldn't it? You mean his original kind of rapport?
Yeah, with her. Because some of it's a callback, isn't it? In Clone Wars.
So I'm not 100% sure.
I get the feeling that they might be suggesting that took place before, and that really doesn't fit with the Obi-Wan Kenobi that I knew, that I met in Phantom Menace. You know, that doesn't really ring true.
Yeah.
If it happened after Qui-Gon, I could see it when he starts to think differently about the Jedi. But I agree with you completely what you're saying, that he seems to me to be the good egg.
Yeah.
Like he wants to do his portion inside the Jedi Order. You know, he wants to try and make things right. And if they want him to be a general and run an army, he'll be a general and run an army.
Yeah.
If they want him to be like a teacher to Anakin, and that's all he does, then fine. You know, he'll just do what he's told and go where he's told to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, some of this stuff doesn't add up. That what we might be plugging into the Obi-Wan character doesn't kind of add up when you take what we know now as the big picture. But I have sort of speculated in the past that Satine and Obi-Wan may have had a daughter that could have been Sabine.
Yeah.
And the numbers do start to add up. The only problem you have is we've been told from quite early on that none of the crew of Rebels are white.
Okay.
And I don't really know what we know about Satine in terms of ethnicity.
Right.
She seems very white to me. We know, of course, that Obi-Wan's white, so maybe it doesn't add up that their daughter would be Sabine.
Yeah, I've heard that theory. I'm not really sold on it. Plus, also we've met Sabine's mother now, haven't we, in Rebels?
Yeah, but there are ways around this stuff. You know, that she could have been. Maybe that's not a birthmark. You know, they can always retcon these things to make them suit a new picture.
Yeah,
but you know. Then you start to test the patience of your audiences across many different platforms. So even though the numbers,
if there's one thing we know about fandom, it can be,
we won't tolerate that. But the thing with Sabine possibly being his daughter, the numbers do kind of add up.
Yeah,
and her being Rey's mother, those numbers kind of add up.
Mm-hmm.
Because she'd be around she'd be just a little bit older than Leia, maybe. So they do, you know, at a push you can make those numbers work.
Yeah. Here's the thing though, isn't Satine dead?
Satine's dead, yeah.
Yeah. So when did that happen?
Sabine would have been born before Satine died.
Well, yeah, I gathered that. Yeah, that kind of has to happen that way.
Yeah. That's the way biology works.
Yeah, thanks for that. I wasn't 100% sure, but it's nice to have it confirmed.
So the pregnancy would have happened before the events of the Clone Wars.
Yeah. So that means that Obi-Wan's already betrayed his Jedi vow.
Yes.
So see, that doesn't fit for me.
No, it doesn't really work with the character we know. No. The character we meet in Phantom Menace and the character we leave in A New Hope. It doesn't seem to really fit. I think there's some wiggle room in there, but there's only so far you can go with it.
Yeah.
Like I put a post out today about an idea for an Obi-Wan story that had him sort of happy on Tatooine and a part of the community in Tatooine and friends with Owen Lars on Tatooine. Yeah. That I could believe. I could believe that that Obi-Wan doesn't have to spend his time in exile sort of punishing himself. He could build a new life for himself and still practice the Force, you know, get used to the living Force and contacting, communing with Qui-Gon, the sort of things we hear in John Jackson Miller's book. But there's no reason, I think, to limit ourselves to thinking of Obi-Wan as being unhappy in exile when he could have started a new life and had a very rewarding life.
Yeah, he can have. He can still
observe the tenets of the Jedi.
He can have. Yeah, exactly. He can still stick to his guns in terms of, no kind of emotional attachments and things. But he can have friends. And actually, he's probably going to be more determined, I think, to do that stuff after Revenge of the Sith, because he knows that's he thinks that part of the reason he failed is because he got attached to Anakin.
Yeah,
and he couldn't kill him. Thus, he's going to be afterwards. He's going to be like, well, I'm not going to do that again, because it almost caused. Ultimately, it would have been the difference between victory and defeat if he let himself be too emotionally attached. But at the same time, I think he would go away and reflect on that, and I think he would be sort of like, well, part of the problem is I started to love him like a brother, because actually then he goes down the other route, the opposite route, which is he becomes completely disconnected and like, no, there's no saving him. You're gonna have to kill him to beat him.
Yeah.
So maybe that's his attempt to kind of correct himself the other way.
Yeah, this is one of the things that is probably going to have to be explored in an Obi-Wan movie is when does he come to that decision? That because it's not a very Jedi. That's not a very Jedi-like position to take, is it? Go and kill him. We've said this for a long time.
Forget that, dude.
Yeah, that's not the Jedi way.
No,
it is quite fearful. It is quite hateful, and it's the position Luke takes, I think, is way more Jedi-like.
Yeah.
But I think that you could look around if you watch A New Hope and you look around Obi-Wan's home, there are adornments in there. It's not a very monastic existence for him. There are things in that house and in that home that go beyond just being practical things. There are tchotchkes, there are remembrances. So the guy has kind of adopted a un-Jedi-like way of living where he's having possessions.
Yeah.
Not just things that he can utilize, but he has possessions there that clearly mean something to him. So I think he's probably stepped away from the Jedi way of life a little bit if you just look at it through that lens. I do really love this is just to try and get back to Dave, the core of Dave's question. I do really love the idea that a Star Wars story could kick off with Luke and Rey.
I like that as a framing mechanism to kind of, to contextualize it in the sense of like, you're always going to view things through these lenses of different familiar characters, because in a way that if we carry on down that path, these characters endure throughout multiple films and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. I think that's a great idea. So I'm on board with that kind of delivery mechanism as a storytelling goes.
Very interesting.
I just think, for me, it's just not the Rey's Kenobi granddaughter thing has never held much water, because I already feel like they've taken a few liberties with his devotion to the Jedi anyway. So to then add even more into the mix and be like, he had a secret family, secret life. It's too much for me.
Yeah. Maybe it will. We would do best, I think, to sort of peel that onion from the inside with Obi-Wan and not try and slap new things on to that character, but go inside to what we already know and sort of develop it a little bit further.
Yeah.
Develop the 20 years that he spends on his own, develop those and not go back and say, oh yeah, before this time, he'd had all these other wild adventures. I mean, we know he's had wild adventures. He has connections out there with people like Dexter, Jetster, and things like that. He has a history that we haven't seen, because remember, there are 10 years between the first film and the second film.
True.
So there are adventures there that we haven't seen. We haven't seen everything he's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe not have the lead in the first series of films be Anakin's kid, and the lead in the second series of films be Obi-Wan's kid. Keep these ones as original as possible. I like the way you're thinking, though, Dave.
Yes,
certainly with the structure. Yeah, absolutely with the structure. And yes, my mind has been racing with possibilities as well, Dave, since the news of that movie sort of crept out last week. So, the rumor
Yes.
Of that movie crept out.
Still, as far as I know, it's still just a rumor officially, right?
Yeah, it's still just the Hollywood Reporter running a thing about Stephen Daldry. There was a suggestion that perhaps he leaked that himself this week.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not sure I buy into that. I think that would be a little bit foolhardy, because if you leak something like that and it goes away, you're going to feel like a bit of a fool, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, an interesting thought process, Dave. And when you've had time to cook up more Obi-Wan theories, share them, and we'll
by all means,
kick them around.
I'll happily listen to this stuff.
There's a lot to consider with this, because I think it's going to prove to be quite a divisive project, this one.
Okay.
I think maybe people would prefer that we went with something completely new and telling another story about another character we already know. I think is already starting to get to a percentage of fandom. But anyway, look, I think Paul's ready to join us, so let's bring Paul into the call now, and then we can move into Charlie's question with Paul on board and get his feedback on this. Paul, welcome back.
Thank you.
How are you, mate? You've been missed.
I've been swatting it up down sort of Cannes and Grasset and so on, just sort of chilling with the rich people.
Nice.
Yeah, a friend of mine's got a farm down there.
Cool.
But they're converting it into a sort of a semi-exclusive B&B. So before they open, we kind of stole a freebie, which was nice.
Lovely.
So yeah, it's been rosé wine, and we've been swimming in rivers, swimming in waterfalls, swimming in the sea, swimming in private pool.
Lovely.
And it's been about 90 odd degrees every single day.
Just gorgeous.
It's pretty cool.
I'm actually quite brown for me, which is really, really nice.
That's the way to do it, mate. Congratulations.
And then, and we landed at 1 o'clock this morning, and I was clocking on at 8 o'clock for work.
Oh, God. Yeah. You must be knackered.
Yeah. I'm a little Scooby, but there you go.
Oh, well, mate. Well, you stick in with us as long as you can. Yeah, all good. Thank you, mate. All good.
Yeah, all right, mate. What, mate?
All right. We've got quite the show notes tonight, Paul. So obviously,
where's the naked one?
He will be joining us very, very shortly. He got called out to an emergency garden inspection, because that's the thing. And then
you do. Sometimes I just sit there. I'm like, I've got to look at the nettles now. Or I'm just gonna
a little alarm goes off. He had to go and rescue some porgs.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Could be worth it. We don't know the full story on those little guys yet, though. So
it's true.
Yeah. No, maybe they've eaten him.
Could be.
Right, we got a question from Charlie Cheeseman, who you might remember, Paul, was a contributor.
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, contributor on Movie Geeks Film News for a little while there. He's been listening to us for a bit. So, Rob, would you like to take Charlie's question?
Gladly.
You can see the notes. Yeah, he's been lurking.
So, Charlie writes, "Hey guys, love the podcast. It gets me through my dreary Mondays. I was chatting with Andy the other day. Was that Andy Smith?
Andy Smith, indeed.
Yep. And we were discussing what we do with the prequels. Were we in that position? We came up with some cool ideas, and I'm currently busy putting a brief synopsis to paper. My question to you chaps is, if you were able to head back to the mid-90s and whisper in George Lucas's ear, what's the one thing you'd advise him to do differently, and the one thing you'd recommend he keep just the way it is? For me, it would be to adjust the overall story pacing. 10 years passed between episodes 1 and 2, and I think it's too big of a gap. I'd ask him to shrink the time between the 3 films and try to tell a more condensed story, hopefully focusing more on the tragedy of Anakin's fall to the dark side rather than trade route negotiations. What I'd ask him to keep is to let John Williams do what he does best. The man can do no wrong in my eyes. What about you guys? Catch up soon. Charles Cheeseman. So we can change the prequels in any way we want. One thing we can change and one thing we have to keep the same. So
Didn't he choose 3 in the end in that question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm old school, so everyone knows my feelings on things like Star Wars. I like models that shake a bit on wires and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't bother me too much. So I would say, George, lose the green.
There's quite a lot of practical stuff in there. It's a surprising amount.
Enough. I'd like 90%.
I don't know what the percentage is.
I want life-size Star Destroyers, and you know what I mean. Let's build that set.
We'd all like that.
Yeah, no, it's a bit. Thing is with CGI, it's really easy to make it too clinical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Coruscant kind of goes across that approach a little bit. I mean, with Coruscant, I'm not suggesting I wanted Blade Runner for 1 minute, but Coruscant could have been a little bit dirtier, if you like, and so on. It looks so pristine.
Yeah.
And then we go to, is it Coruscant where Obi-Wan goes to the cafe to meet his buddy?
Yeah, in the second one.
And you know, he's a pretty guy and his pants are falling down, and it was a bit more parody, if you like. I just fancy something a bit more gritty. Coruscant to me.
Ewan McGregor went Eddie Izzard.
Yeah,
he does.
Hello, Dex.
It was sort of James Mason pitch thrown in the side kind of thing. I know what you mean.
Have you seen this duds?
Yes. He eats a Caesar. But yeah. So I mean, even though the guy's pants are falling down, he's a big greasy Joe cafe kind of thing.
Yeah.
Overall, I just found Coruscant to be a little too clean and sharp and stuff. It was a bit Luc Besson in its approach, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you.
I like that.
Generally lose the green. I mean, we didn't need to see 20 million ships flying through in the sky all in tandem and so on and so forth. I like sets. I don't care if a wall shakes, and I don't care if you can hear thumping on wood and that kind of thing. It doesn't bother me, because I generally find that it adds to the depth of act as well as the depth of the scene, and it certainly adds to performance.
Well, when the actors know where they are, that helps.
And a lot
of Ewan, because Ewan was quite vocal about some of the things he disliked in the prequels, and some of that stuff was being on a green screen set. Oh, here he is. Some of that was being on a green screen set and not knowing, what he was dealing with, because you're just looking at an X on the wall. Hello, Steve.
Hello, X.
Hello.
Well, welcome.
Is that
in.
what it was?
If you're going to talk about
to the X on the wall.
Out of here.
Hello, X.
This is a question about the prequel, Steve. It's Charlie asking us if we could go back to the 90s and change something about the prequels, change one thing and keep one thing.
Steve won't like my answer.
So have a little. I'm sharing the screen, Steve, so you can read. You can read through the question.
Okay. I will.
Paul's just said he wanted more practical sets and more models rather than the CG heavy approach.
No, well, I said too much green, which is why I said Steve won't like
sets. Steve.
No, I agree with Paul. It didn't feel in the vein of Star Wars, did it? That's the trouble. It felt like something different to Star Wars. I would say politics.
Yeah. What more of it, Steve? You want
lots more.
Mark, loads more politics. Loads more inane drivel. That makes any sense.
Well, that is something that Charlie put in his question. That less taxation of trade routes and more of the fall of Anakin.
And keep something. I would say.
Keep something.
Keep the music.
That's what he said.
Keep the music. Get rid of everything else.
Yeah.
Pick one thing. One thing.
You can get that now, though, Steve. It's a CD. I'll send you a copy. Rob, what about you? What would you keep, and what would you jettison?
Yep. I'm going to ignore the music because we've established that we want it. So I'm just going to assume that enough people have.
I'm on board with that. That would be one of mine. So I'm going to choose something else as well. But that doesn't mean I don't value that answer. I
would keep. Most of episode 3, to be honest. I think he's right that I would space out 1 and 2 and 3 better.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 occurs kind of younger in Anakin's life, still having the same issues, still having problems with temper and Tusken Raiders and all that stuff, but at a younger age. So he's not just getting angry and starting to cause problems for himself. He's actually doing it much younger than anybody's ever done it before. So even if somebody did know what he was doing, and they wouldn't know where to even begin kind of reining him in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I would bring episode 2 further back in time, closer to episode 1.
Yep.
So Anakin's been under Obi-Wan's wing for sort of, I don't know,
3 or 4 years,
6 years. Yeah, 5. 4 to 6 years, let's say.
Yeah, there's about 10 years at the moment.
Yeah, so I'd sort of cut that down so that it's about the same amount of space between 1, 2, and 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
I would change. I tell you what, I would change actually is I would tweak Anakin's reasoning for turning to the dark side. So there would be more to it than just his visions of Padme. There would also be. I heard a really good. This is I sort of half pinched this from Reddit, but somebody wrote a really good synopsis of an episode 3 that sounded amazing, which is that he's been basically sent off around the galaxy during the Clone Wars as a kind of enforcer for hire. So he's just done so much more than anybody else had by that age. Because obviously he's not only is he in war, but he's also the chosen one and the youngest to sort of be part of the Jedi in that kind of level of depth. So he becomes kind of increasingly just, almost PTSD'd.
Right.
And I read it and they sort of described how he was this kind of larger than life kind of mythical figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. And I really want that. It sounds brilliant. So something like that would be cool.
I like the idea. I was talking about this on the Kessel run this week that when I was talking about the Force and whether or not the Force would be a light side, so a separate entity, like Lucas's original picture, Ashlar and Bogan. So you have a very definite light side of the Force and a very definite dark side of the Force. I prefer that the Force is just like this ambiguous thing, and then it takes on qualities depending on what your agenda is, and that makes what happens to Anakin more about the decisions he makes and less about the effect the dark side has on him. It's more about he makes choices. So I find that more compelling than somebody gets swept up in this dark magic, black magic type thing. But I think I'm going to take a slightly different approach to you guys, and I'm going to go to the production. For if I had an opportunity to whisper in George's ear at the time and tell him what to do differently, I would say spend more time getting things right in production and spend less time relying on the edit and pickups, because you end up with more continuity through the films if you manage to gather all the material you want at once, and you'll have less silly beards and you'll have less green screen because you've got everything on the day, everything's in the can and ready to go. Too much of what George did on those films was experiment with non-linear editing, which meant he could do whatever he want, and he could lift a character out of a scene and stall him so that his performance was a couple of beats behind the rest of the cast performance. And all of that stuff is great for George as a filmmaker to explore creating these tools. Yeah. But I don't think that Star Wars is the place to do that sort of experimentation. So I would ask him to sort of dial back on that so that he can focus more on getting the film caught in principal photography. Yep. Still have pickups because, of course, you're going to need them, but rely less on them.
Unavoidable, generally.
They're unavoidable, but they are egregious.
This is your destiny.
In Star Wars, pickups are egregious. And when he goes and just picks up whole new sequences and slots them into the film, they call attention to themselves. Like Obi-Wan and Anakin's arrival at Padme's apartment in Episode 2.
Yes, in the lift with the big mullets.
Big mullets, big fake beards. It's just and that
great big bushy beard.
That beard that Natalie Portman was wearing was really off-putting.
It just stood out. I don't even know why they didn't pick up on this.
Attention to itself.
There's no quality control on this stuff, you know.
That would be the thing that I would ask.
She'd obviously not wear one that bushy. I'm sorry, it's just.
And it was too light as well. She was very dark.
Yeah, ridiculous.
So that's what I'd want him to. That's what I'd want to change. George's approach to production. Take it a little bit more seriously and get everything mapped out ahead of time. Yeah. And the thing I would keep is I'd keep the Sith plot because I love the Sith plot. Yeah. Somebody manipulating themselves into a position of power and using it for their own benefits totally at the expense of everything else. It's perfect for Star Wars. So that was what I would keep. But I'd take a production route with a thing to change. Yeah. No, all round good. And I'm looking forward to seeing what else. Charlie says he's writing some of this stuff down. So I'm looking forward to seeing what what comes out of that. I'd like
Watch your career with great interest.
Yes, indeed. Right, okay. Thank you, Charlie. Nice to hear from you. I'm glad you're listening and enjoying the show. Right, who wants to take Nathan's question?
Steve does.
Steve?
Hello.
Would you like to take
Nathan Robert?
Nathan's question, yeah?
Yeah. Hey, fellas. Last week, Mark and Rob had a discussion about Rey's lightsaber. During that discussion, you guys touched on a common theory that the events Rey sees in her vision might somehow be connected to the lightsaber itself. Personally, I don't subscribe to that theory. You guys discussed before the idea that as Luke becomes stronger in the Force, the vision of Obi-Wan's spirit becomes clearer in him. It's a theory I like, and I think we can look at Rey's vision through the lens of that theory. We don't see Rey use the Force in any intentional way prior to her having the vision, and one of the most significant aspects of the vision are the voices of Yoda and Obi-Wan. Now, suppose because Rey is untrained and unaware of her Force potential, that Yoda and Obi-Wan have no way to communicate with her. The best they can do is call her through the lightsaber, drawing her to touch it. Once she does, the saber acts as a conduit through which they can begin to communicate with her, a la the vision. We've seen that object can be interacted with through the Force in such a way through the power of psychometry, most prominently used in Quinlan Vos.
Mm-hmm.
Though the visions, the events that have led to this point begin to unfold for her, and subconsciously Obi-Wan and Yoda awaken the Force within her. Obi-Wan's final words to her are telling, "These are your first steps." It's a tidy theory, I think, and it solves the Mary Sue issue to a larger degree. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Have a great show. Nathan 1 Kenobi. Okay, you've put a note under here, Mark. Do you want me to read that out?
Yeah. Read that out, mate. Yep.
So you've put, we've said previously, it's the kyber crystal that Rey is connecting to, not the weapon itself, which kind of makes sense. Absolutely. We've established that kyber crystals are awesome. So could Obi-Wan and Yoda be using psychometry to connect with Rey through the lightsaber? Answers on a postcard, please. Get them first class. We'll be sitting here in silence for a few days.
For a week.
Is it psychometry?
So
I was going to say
that would be my pronunciation. Psychometry.
Yeah, well, I didn't know.
That's all right.
I thought psychometry sounded like.
I've always pronounced it psycho. Me try? No.
Well, I've always said psychometry.
What for gang?
Psychometry. Is this a Star Wars word, or is it a word used in the English language?
No, I think it is an actual.
It's an English language term.
It is an actual word.
I'll Google it.
Even if not, Steve, it's assembled from words.
Words and letters.
Actual words and letters. So I think we can say psychometry is probably fine.
Psychometry is also known as token object reading or psychoscopy, is a form of extrasensory perception characterized by the claimed ability to make relevant associations from an object or unknown history by making physical contact with that object.
Well done.
Okay. Here you go.
What she said.
So let's look at Nathan's question.
Hang on, sorry. It's from the Greek, psychometry, meaning spirit and soul.
Oh, cool. Okay, thank you, Steve.
And measure. Okay, there you go.
Every day's a school
I've
day.
earned my crust tonight.
You have. Thanks for stopping by. Do I eject you from the call again? All right, okay.
You served your purpose.
Let's look at Nathan's question, because I think actually he says he doesn't like our theory, but I think he likes it more than he realises, because we're kind of on the same page here.
Yeah.
With regard to psychometry, I don't know if that will be introduced, and I'm basing that purely on the amount of effort that's been placed on filling out kyber crystals within canon. So the more attention is being paid to them through the events of Catalyst and Rogue One, and Rey's crystal and everything Chirrut has to say about them. So it's seems to me. It's always seemed to me that it's the crystal inside the Skywalker lightsaber that's calling to Rey, the same way as that crystal would have called to Anakin through the crystal song when it summons its Padawan and things like that, and creates a connection between her and the Force. Now, that might be the awakening. I haven't gone back to see how this ties up. I've been meaning to this week, but I haven't had a chance. go back to The Force Awakens and see when Snoke suggests that there's been an awakening. I think it's after Jakku.
It is.
So it's before the lightsaber, because I wondered if maybe that might have been her awakening within the Force, is the connection through that crystal. But that certainly is a threshold for her interaction with that device. And I think it's more likely to be the crystal that makes a connection between her and the living Force. And remember, at this point in time, the only people in the living Force are Yoda, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan. So it stands to reason that when she connects to the Force, that will be the connection that she makes. But what do you guys? What are your thoughts on it?
I need a recollection on the context where he says there's been an awakening.
Let me find.
He says to Kylo, "There's been an awakening." And if I remember rightly, I think we've spoken about this before. It's her escape from Jakku, I think, is when she first takes her Force use potentially. Takes her Force use to the next level, which might be.
So it happens after they. Oh, so it's after Finn and Rey help Han and Chewie escape from the freighter. After the Rathtars, just after that. That's the next scene. I thought it was earlier.
Okay, so and I want to know what ideal or element or what plays out for that to happen in
Rathtars. She shuts the door, doesn't she?
She presses a button.
Presses a button to shut the right door.
Someone pointed out recently, I think it was Dave Donovan in the VIP group, he said he was watching The Force Awakens and he said, I'd not noticed this before, but the Rathtar runs away from Rey.
Okay.
Picks up Finn and runs away from Rey.
Yeah.
Is that actual intentional writing in the script
I don't know.
Reading into
it's this thing when nobody's sure, really.
The problem is
I don't think that's deliberate.
There's a lot of ambiguity around these things in Star Wars, aren't there? And it could be retconned later on to be the point in time where, that she's showing some influence over that beast using the Force, and that's what Snoke's interpreting as the
regardless.
awakening.
I mean, he picks up on it regardless, and
they definitely pick up on a newcomer or somebody that's just started to use the Force in such a way as they felt it. But I wasn't sure how that related to her vision, but I think now, just to state my position clearly on this, I think that I think Rey first connects with the Force through the Kyber crystal at the heart of the Skywalker lightsaber, and that's when Obi-Wan and Yoda are able to connect with her. But what I hadn't given any serious consideration to, and what I really like about Nathan's suggestion, is that it's deliberate on Obi-Wan and Yoda's part, that they're waiting for that connection in order to start to influence Rey. And it's not an accident, it's not an echo that's caught up inside that crystal.
I like that.
It's them waiting for her to sort of pop up.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, waiting in what context? At the moment, are they literally sitting patiently, three spirits floating, in the Force ether, if you like, and there is a tremor, if for want of a better word, when the contact between her and the Kyber crystal is made, that wakes up that ethereal entity that they may become, or have they left a small part of themselves within that crystal to give her a welcome when the contact is made?
Less the latter from my point of view. Guys, what do you think?
Sorry, run that by me again.
I think it's more like Paul's saying, are they out there as a part of the living Force, and when Rey connects with the crystal, they feel
an
it,
enormous alarm bell goes off,
or have they left a part of themselves in the crystal waiting for her? And I think it's less likely to be the second option. I think it's more likely.
I think the first one sounds more feasible
that's
to me.
Just the way the Force works.
She's just literally the Force is everywhere. I think that Obi-Wan, I think there's a potential for Qui-Gon and Yoda, that all communing with Luke on Arc 2, and he's learning from them and probably teaching them as well, because he's had access to things that perhaps they never saw. And then they feel the awakening just the same way as Snoke does.
Right.
And that's when Obi-Wan and Yoda start to reach out to Rey through that crystal, through that connection to the living force, so that she can start to see visions, the future, the past, all
clear,
that stuff.
Mark,
he says, yes, mate.
There's no. So just to be sure, when they say there's been an awakening, she hasn't touched the saber at that point.
No.
She's not reached. So, is it possible? I know this is really out there. Is it possible that Snoke is talking about Finn's awakening, that no stormtroopers actually defected before, and there's been an awakening in their own rank? Okay, I'll shut up then.
No, I like where you're coming from on that one, but I think it's I think in the context of the scene, it's established that it's the Force that they're talking about.
Yeah.
I thought it was Finn.
Yeah. No, I like the what's it called? I like the
the premise is fascinating. That is, but it could be something within Kylo that Snoke's referring to. You know, it's that J.J. Abrams mystery box thing where it goes undefined in the film, so it's open to a certain amount of interpretation. But I think, if I remember rightly, in the novel, it's much more pointed that they're talking about Rey.
Yeah.
And some of that dialogue from Kylo about it's you and you're just a scavenger, all of that stuff is sort of setting Rey up as being the subject of the awakening. I'm going to say there's probably I'll just say this so that we've at least tabled it for discussion. There is also the prospect of the fact that just because we're experiencing that film in a linear way, that doesn't mean that the characters in the story are experiencing everything in a linear way, and that she touches the lightsaber and that's her connection. It could spill out each way through time as well. So it could be the potential that she's moving towards her fate and they're starting to see a future take shape. Do you see what I mean? The way that, the future's always in motion, but the closer you get to those events, the more tangible they must start to be. Like Luke was seeing his friends in pain on Cloud Cities. Kylo and Snoke, are they starting to see a future forming? There's a potential for somebody to come to prominence within the Force, and then the closer every step she takes forward, they're starting to feel it. This thing's coming, something's happening, because the future's starting to coalesce around Rey and the decisions she's making. So there's a potential for that. I think that's a little bit too ethereal for the Star Wars we know and love.
Maybe,
but it's an option, right? That they could be starting to feel something coming together. That if she just said no, I'm not going, and walked away from Finn, that would have all gone away for them.
Yeah,
that's a potential.
Yeah, and he's right that it does. Explaining that would solve some of the problems people have with her sort of suddenly becoming 0 to 60 in terms of being able to do stuff.
Yeah,
it would solve some of those problems. It doesn't solve all of them, but it solves a decent chunk of it. So it probably you'd probably find that people would be less bothered by the stuff that remained because it didn't feel so significant.
Yeah,
it's definitely it would definitely help.
I think if you switch out, in Nathan's question, if you switch out the word lightsaber or saber with the word kyber crystal, I think you're onto something. And it takes away the need for the psychometry and the need to introduce another aspect of Jedi lore, even though we know it happens in the expanded universe.
Yeah,
just those kyber crystals that we're all getting used to. If it's that thing that's made the connection, and it's that connection that Obi-Wan and Yoda have used to get their hands on Rey first. Because it is kind of a race for the light side, isn't it? It's like get to her first, and then so you can have the influence over her. And they've shown her as much as possible through visions.
Yeah,
there's a lot of other stuff in there, though. I mean, it's not just Obi-Wan and Yoda. There's the Knights of Ren, and there's the Emperor. You hear the Emperor's voice as well. So there's some dark side stuff going on in there too.
Yeah.
Would it be them doing that? Do you think?
I don't know. See that's
where it puts a twist on it.
Yeah, it almost lends itself more to it's just the Kyber crystal talking about the Force as a whole kind of entity, rather than one specific team kind of doing their bit.
Yeah, it's not like she's picked up the receiver and Team Jedi are on the other end saying, finally, right, listen, because I've only got a couple of minutes. You're about to hear the beeps as my change is running out.
Don't listen to that growling, fool.
Yeah, it seems to me like this, her connecting with the crystal is opening a dam, and she's just flooded with this new sense. It's like suddenly picking up a sixth sense for her, and she gets hit with a tidal wave of information, and in the mix are members of the living force that have managed to retain our identity after death. So Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and all of this stuff comes flooding through to her, and she just picks out as much information as she can.
Yeah.
And obviously for us as the audience, we identify more with the characters we know. So she's seeing the information that's relevant to us. She's not seeing stuff that features Mace Windu or any of the other. We didn't see any scenes from Geonosis or anything like that. You know, we only saw what's relevant to our characters. But I definitely think it's the crystal, and it opens a portal to the Force. She gets swept along in that thing, and just inside there are the personalities of Obi-Wan and Yoda. So I'm 90% of the way. I'm 90% of the way there with Nathan on this one.
Yeah. So it's pretty tidy. I like a lot of it.
Paul and Steve, got anything you want to kick into this before we?
Well, I already asked the question because I had two questions, and I'm still wondering if. I don't know. I'm just wondering if it was an alarm clock.
Right.
Almost.
Well,
and
I think it's the saber itself. Sorry to interrupt, Paul, but that's my take on it.
The actual lightsaber itself, not the crystal.
No, the Kyber crystal, but nothing to do with the Yoda or. I think it's the crystal itself.
Yeah. So it's
sorry, Paul. Carry on, mate.
So you're there with me, Steve. You think that the Kyber crystal helps her open up to become receptive to the Force, and then she just gets hit with this torrent of information.
Yeah.
Okay. So how is the decision made on what information to give her?
Well, I don't think that's. I don't think there's any sort of order in there. There isn't really a filing system in that. Vision.
Yeah, but none of it is just random information. It's very, very specific, cautionary information, which is why it looks like a telegram. So
that's what I think. It's because the stuff in the future are visions, and the way Luke had visions that related to him and his friends and the action he was going to take. I think what Rey was seeing was visions that related to her. So when she sees Kylo in the forest, that's a glimpse of a possible future. She's seeing the past with the Knights of Ren.
Interesting, it didn't show Han.
No.
Never thought about that before.
Didn't go that far, did it?
Yeah.
Because they hadn't gone that wasn't on Star
She let go.
But it did, didn't it? Because she saw him in the woods. So actually she saw what happened afterwards.
But I take that to be her and Kylo on Takodana, because that's Kylo in the mask, and on Star Killer, it's Kylo out of the mask.
Yeah, but that didn't happen. They didn't encounter.
She encountered him on Takodana, didn't she?
Yeah, but in the vision, it's definitely a dark, snowy planet. It's not Takodana.
So it might be.
I don't think that. I don't think that. Maybe, like an amalgamation of the pair. Yeah, that might work.
Yeah, because it's not 100% either, is it? You got
exactly. Yeah,
masked Kylo in the snow, and later on when we actually see Kylo in the snow, it's unmasked Ben Solo. But so I think just the way we're having trouble nailing this down, I don't think it's ever. It doesn't seem like it's an info dump for her. Look, this is a bunch of stuff that you need to work through.
I think it's supposed to remain ambiguous.
Yeah, and it's very raw.
Maybe, yeah.
and it's an emotional thing, isn't it? It's like the sort of thing that motivated Luke to abandon his training and go and help his friends. They're in trouble. They're in pain. And no matter how much he was told, well, it's only a possible future. Rey's seeing past, present, and her future, potential future.
Yeah.
All in one big hit. And it's enough to sort of literally knock her off her feet and bring her to tears.
Yeah.
And repulses her away from that weapon even. But yeah, I think Kyber Crystal. Rob, have you come down on one side or other yet?
I think the crystal makes sense. I mean, the saber itself is just machinery, otherwise, doesn't it? She has to be connecting to something living, otherwise. Although if it's psychometry, I suppose you don't, do you?
Not really.
No. I'm going to go with the crystal itself. That's what I'm going to do. Because it's got a mix of...
And because it calls to her.
Because it calls to her, and because it's a mix of both sides of the Force as well, because it's got elements of people talking about the light side and the dark side.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely to be an entity that has no particular affiliation one way or another, and kyber crystals tick the box for me more than the saber itself.
I mean, at the same time, though, you could say because it's the crystal, it becomes the lightsaber.
Well, yeah, I mean,
definitely.
Kind of,
I think what Nathan's talking about is the psychometry is something that we've toyed around with. We've spoken about before that Kylo might be using psychometry with the helmet, and he might be using Vader's helmet, touching it and getting the information from his grandfather. Steve, this must be killing you. And so he's touching his granddad's helmet and seeing what he can get from it.
Giving it a rub.
That's psychometry. But the crystal in that lightsaber called Rey down from the upper levels of Maz's castle down to the basement. And she went to it. She was called to it. And with Kylo, he's having to interact with these physical objects just to get something from them. But Rey was already getting information from the crystal when it called to her, the same as the crystals call from the minds of Ilum to the Padawans. So to me, it screams crystal, and psychometry would be the weapon itself, the actual physical, the casing, the rubber, the switches, could all be used to stimulate a reaction. But she was already getting that. She was already getting information from the crystal before she got to the actual physical casing of that weapon. So I definitely think it's a connection to the Force opening up when she is close to that crystal, and less about the actual interacting with the case of the weapon itself. But I love the idea that Obi-Wan and Yoda think, quick, this is our chance. Rey, you got to do this.
I don't think they thought about that.
No, phone this number, Rey.
I only have 30 seconds to tell you about intergalactic proton-powered electrical tentacle advertising droid. It's taken me 8 seconds just to tell you the name.
And then a loss in connection. That's Nathan. It's a great question, and I love where you're coming from. And I do think we're more on the same page than you realise with the with Rey's visions being connected to that weapon, or at least a crystal in its heart.
Can't we get J.J. Abrams on next week?
Yeah, we'll try.
We'd wrap all this up.
He keeps asking to come on, but it's timing.
All good.
It's just schedules.
Also, he's a bit past it, isn't he?
He is, yeah. He's out of the loop now. He's had his movie. Right, we've got a question from Mike. Paul, did you want to take Mike's question?
Yeah, I can try.
Mike Messalani from Charleston, South Carolina. Awesome guy.
Okay.
Wow. Hello.
I'm reading it.
Hurry up.
Can you read it to us?
Can you use your big boy voice?
Outside voice, Paul. Outside voice.
Right. Hi guys. While I was listening to the last few shows, I had thought of a few theories that I'd like to get your take on them. Apologise if this is jumbly, but I'm so tired I could cry. First, is Luke and the piece of ruby kyber crystal he appears to be wearing around his neck, that maybe from Vader's lightsaber? I don't recall seeing that image, so post that up for me, Mark, please. What if Kylo is using the other piece of the crystal to power his saber? his crystal was supposed to be cracked? No, sorry. But what if it's not only cracked but broken altogether, and that's why he has to use the antique crossguard saber design? As for Rey, I have another theory. What if she's no more than a girl from Jakku and not related to anyone? Maybe Rey isn't even her first name, but actually her surname. When we see her sitting next to the broken Hulk of the AT-AT, she puts on an aged New Republic flight helmet with the name Rey painted on in Arabesque, which looks like it was which looks like it was original to it. Could have belonged to her father or mother, who crashed during the Battle of Jakku and met one of the locals later on. Her strength in the Force must be just coincidence and not gin. I have some other theories, but I'll save them for another day. Thanks for the great show, Mike, aka Gundog 2000, Charleston,
South Carolina.
I like Sk.
Yeah, I think you just broke up at the end there, Paul. So I just want to go over something because I just lost you in a little bit of interference. So he was saying that it could be that the helmet with Rey written on it may have belonged to a father or a mother who crashed during the Battle of Jakku, went on to meet locals later on, and that her strength in the Force may be a coincidence and not necessarily genetic. Sorry, I think you broke up just a little bit while you were reading that line. Also, I feel strong enough to pull the ears off Mike because he is a Gundog. Let's look at this breakdown then. Vader's kyber crystal in Kylo's lightsaber. We've been here before, right?
Haven't we just? How many times?
Have I got everyone else on the call? Have we lost someone?
Yeah, have we? Sorry, but this might
I had
be...
to go quiet.
Sorry. It might be pre-me. Am I on mute? Sorry.
No, you're not, Paul.
I don't recall a conversation of the crystal being cracked and... Or hang on, we're looking at two avenues here. The idea one is the crystal is cracked and one half may well be in his lightsaber. Mm-hmm. Alternatively, Vader's kyber crystal is in his lightsaber period. Is that correct?
So the crystal is cracked in Kylo's lightsaber. We know that for sure.
Yes, because of the mess thing, mate.
Because of the behind the scenes book.
Yeah, and Pablo actually detailed on there that the crystal is indeed cracked.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, let's tackle this first part. So we have gone over this before. So first, going back to Mike's question first, is Luke in the piece of kyber crystal he wears possibly from Vader's crystal? So Luke Skywalker is apparently wearing a necklace that has... yes, Paul, to answer your question in chat. Luke's wearing a necklace that has a little red piece of kyber crystal in it. So Mike's asking is the ruby kyber crystal that he's wearing a piece of Vader's kyber crystal from his lightsaber? Interesting. I think that's kind of possible.
Okay.
And what if Kylo's using the other piece in his crystal of that crystal in his lightsaber? Also think that's possible. And this does tie back to Delilah S. Dawson's Perfect Weapon, where people go out to try and find this item, which seems very much to be Vader's lightsaber to me. And I think that was possibly Kylo that's trying to Haven't we also discussed the possibility that Kylo was trying to bleed Luke's crystal? Yes.
So that could also be what's left of Luke's crystal on his neck.
That's something else we suggested. Exactly, yeah. That's something else we suggested. And it could be any combination of the two. So it could be that, because we're learning a whole bunch of new rules now about Sith and how they get their red blades. They have to win the lightsaber from a Jedi and then bleed that crystal. It's a bit like defeating the wizard, Paul, and getting the wand in Harry Potter. So here I think you got an option that Kylo beat Luke by any estimation and took the green crystal, bled it, broke it, and now wants a new crystal to do it again, and he'd rather have one of his grandfather's crystals, which is why he's so interested in the Skywalker lightsaber in the TFA. And I think Luke may have then possibly sourced Vader's lightsaber or had it all along, and that's the crystal that he wears around his neck. Possibly.
I have a question, Mark.
You have a question,
You've read
Mark?
the Ahsoka.
Yeah, sorry.
You've read the Ahsoka book, haven't you?
Yes.
Does she have to do anything to make the crystal revert to white, or does it automatically revert?
No.
Okay.
She defeats the Inquisitor.
Yep.
So she can take those crystals back from him, and she heals them, and that's when they return to their.
So she has to consciously, deliberately heal them. It's not just an automatic. You've freed me from my bonds, kind of thing. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Just check. And that's why all crystals are white. Then this is going back a couple of weeks, but they are all clear then to start.
Don't know that yet.
Not necessarily, but there are some of them start clear. Yeah.
Yeah. There's certainly what we've seen so far in these new movies of kyber crystals are clear. Yes. Rogue One had a number of clear crystals. So I think Mike's picked up on stuff that we've spoken about way back in earlier episodes about, Vader's lightsaber, I certainly think, is connected to this in some way. And I think Kylo's either got the crystal at the heart of his weapon or Luke is indeed wearing that around his neck. But I also like the idea that Kylo's bled the green crystal, and the fragment that broke off is what Luke's kept to remind himself of what happens when you take the eye off the ball.
Yeah.
So, yes, Mike, I think, I do think that Kylo has got some of Vader's crystal inside that lightsaber, and that's a very early theory that I had coming out of TFA.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to. Are we done? Are we done with the kyber crystal? Let's move on to. So, could Rey just be a simple girl from Jakku?
I hope so.
Yes. Said that again.
Yeah, I'm all right with. I'm good with that. If that's what they want to do, I'm all for it.
We like that idea, don't we? Very much.
It makes the galaxy feel bigger.
Yeah.
If they do that, if they don't go down the route of like, oh, she's connected to this person and this lineage. Especially, I heard the one. Is it Skywalker's daughter, Kenobi granddaughter? So how small do you want this world? Do you literally want there to be like 28 people in it?
Yeah.
I don't know why 28. That's a weird number to choose.
Well,
but,
then the only way they get away without making it feel that way is if it is hereditary, which we've covered before as well.
But then it still can be. You can just have more than one Force-sensitive family in the entire galaxy. That seems logical to me, being as there was a whole group of the prequels.
Yeah, I like the idea that and I think that we may get this in The Last Jedi, that she's the subject of a prophecy. Where, and I know that gets your back up, Rob, but that there are many prophesized children of the Force, if you like, and she would have scared the bejesus out of her parents when she started to display these abilities, and that's why they set her down on Jakku and backed away slowly. And she sort of grew into this young woman with all this potential, and she was actually what Luke was expecting Ben to be. He clearly thinks, from Marc's comments, that there was something special about Ben. When really I think he should have looked a little bit further and he would have found Rey. Certainly the Church of the Force appear to have found Rey. Otherwise, why would they be on Tatooine? That's got to be connected.
Jakku.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, Jakku. So let's.
As a question, actually, have we established beyond a reasonable doubt that she was left on Jakku, as in dropped there, or has she just been left behind?
I think dropped there.
Okay.
I've only got the vision to go on.
Yeah.
That she sees people leaving and calls for them to come back. I definitely think
but why does that denote? My question is more, why does that denote dropped off and left and people leave without her, rather than her always being from Jakku and they leave her behind and go away? Because she could still, she's just saying,
I see what you mean. Yes, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, there's nothing. Yeah, I'm not even sure whether or not that's a distinction that's important at this stage. But yeah, you're right. There's a definite distinction there.
Yeah.
Are they just bugging out and leaving the planet they'd all grown up on together? Or was she taken there from somewhere else and plopped down?
For whatever reason, she's safer there than wherever they're going.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it, Paul, actually, yeah.
Well, that's the only way I've ever looked at it.
That they were going to something that she would be...
Yeah.
And the alternative was leave her with Unkar Plutt.
Mm-hmm.
That's a possibility, yeah. I mean, the other possibility is that they feared what she was doing.
I like that.
So, but if she was showing kind of early signs of the Force use, and especially in a part of the galaxy where maybe there's no knowledge of the Jedi because they've been relegated to myth,
or there is knowledge
if she
of the
starts
Jedi,
doing,
and it's
yeah.
and she's considered contraband.
Yeah, maybe. Or there's knowledge of the Jedi, and they know what happens when they go wrong, and they just don't want to take the risk. Full stop.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of permutations of that thing.
I've made a bunch of notes here. In the show notes, I've put a bunch of research in just to address some of Mike's other points, because he goes on to talk about Rey's the flight helmet she wears outside the AT-AT, because it does in fact have Rey written on it. Mm-hmm. And we have spoken about this before. Like, is Rey a name she gave herself, or is that a name she was a birth name? And like Mike suggests here, could it be a family name? And we just don't know her Christian name or a given name yet. Which
without sounding sexist, Rey is a male name, isn't it? Generally, I know it can be a female
for the
name,
most part. For the most part,
so it makes sense that it's taken from a helmet. He.
Yeah, even though the helmet. Well, we'll get to the helmet in a second, but the
I can't wait.
The suggestion.
Yeah, up there.
Well, welcome back, Steve. Oh god, no! I've totally lost my train of thought. You really pushed me off track.
Pushed you off the helmet.
Yeah, indeed. So she was sitting outside the AT-AT wearing this flight helmet. It had Rey written on it. So the question is, could that be a name she's adopted? And early in production, she was being called Kira. So was the character always planned to be one thing, and then they've hidden her under the mask of this assumed identity that she's picked up through her relationship with some of the things she's salvaged on Jakku? So some of this research, and there's a bunch of, if you download the show notes, there's a bunch of links in there for you to follow out to some of these bits on Wikipedia. But it says here that Dosmit Rey was a female fighter pilot who served as a captain in the Alliance to restore the Republic, and she flew an X-Wing fighter with the Typhon Yellow Aces. So that's her helmet that Rey's using. So it actually has the name Rey written on it, which kind of supports the idea that perhaps...
Oh, so it is a woman that is an X-Wing female pilot. It is
a lady pilot. And the name is phonetically, it's Rey, even though it's not spelled.
Oh, okay.
And then this is a passage from a storybook centered around Rey that came out around the time of TFA, which is Rey's monologue or her inner monologue. When I was a kid, I liked to make up stories about Captain Rey, about who she was and what planet she might have come from. So it's almost like our Rey is starting to identify with Captain Rey, and it does suggest to me that maybe she's adopted that identity.
Or maybe she hasn't adopted it. Maybe the people who dropped her off said to her before she lost her memory or it was wiped that you must never mention your real name. Your name is Rey from this point on, and tell anyone it's Rey.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she doesn't know she's forgotten it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, maybe. But I think that fits. If that's the case, it's just a name she sees every day. That would fit, wouldn't it?
Mm.
It's like, what's
she
your
doesn't
name?
even know her name's not Rey.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those things that we could file in the thing in a section labelled doesn't fail. It's not like it's the answer where you go, of course that makes perfect sense. This is one of those things that it doesn't fail. It's
I can see Luke saying to her in the early part of Last Jedi, when she introduces herself as Rey, thinking he doesn't know already who she is, and he goes, "Your name's not Rey, it's such and such."
Yeah,
Jeff.
But wouldn't that be interesting if his first line to her was Kira? If he just like as a question, Kira? She says, "No, I'm Rey. You can call me Kira, you nut job. Go and tidy yourself up."
And then she cuts him in half with a sword.
Okay, so storyline wise that fits. Here's a reason why it won't. I don't see it happening.
But you have to ruin everything, Rob.
No, I'm just offering. I'm playing devil's advocate. That's all. We don't know for sure that either one's true or false yet, so we'll find out. But there will have been parents, and I know some personally, who've gone out and named a newborn baby Rey.
Yes.
After awakening. So if they then turn around, and actually I said this at the time, I remember thinking, well, I don't know if I said it, I certainly thought it. they better hope that's her name throughout the whole trilogy.
Well,
because if not, I mean, it's not a bad name for a little girl anyway, so it doesn't matter that much. But what I mean is, if they're really kind of if parents are really trying to make that connection, and that's not her name by the end of episode 9, there's going to be some upset parents.
Who cares? I'd
rather they tell a compelling story than placate the.
Well, there's two sides to this coin as well, because
did they consider trilogy?
We had spoken about this before, Rob, and I think we said at the time, regardless of how many people called their kids Rey, Disney have built a brand around this girl now. They've built a brand around Rey. So to only have that last one film before you go, no, her name's Debbie, and then in the next film, no, it's Margaret. You just can't.
How bad it is, Rey.
You can't keep moving. You can't keep moving the goalposts on people.
Sure,
especially when you're building a brand like this. And also, this is an awful lot of story to tackle when you've just established a character one film ago. It's an awful lot of story to go back and say.
I think more likely they'll say, "I'm happy with Rey. Thanks very much."
Yeah,
it certainly could be, even if, like you were saying, Steve, even if it's not the name she was born with, it might be the name she chooses.
Yeah.
So in which case, she'd still be Rey by the end of
course,
episode 9.
And if she hasn't got family around to sort of change that, but it could just be that she's gone all over Jakku. And when I was doing a deep dive the other day on this research in Wikipedia, there's a ton of stuff in there that she's gone everywhere. She's got flight simulators and she's read all these manuals. She's going all over that wreckage, that field of wreckage, trying to find something useful. Now, she's probably picked up dozens of helmets, and the one she chose to keep is the one she says, "Oh, that's nearly my name." So she's taken that away with her because it's something that she can put in her AT-AT now with little possessions, like a little doll that she's made out of the scraps of material that creepily she probably had to pull off of a dead body. And she's got something in there that just says that's nearly my name. So she's got ownership over it, and she draws comfort from it. That's why she sits outside and wears it. A sense of ownership, a sense of control, and that's all it is. I think that she found this thing and it just happened to have the name on it, and she's kept it because she has a connection to it because their names are similar. But these are all interesting, fascinating things to sort of explain or explore. But I do really dig this idea that she's just a girl from Jakku.
Yeah, I'm really, really fine with this. I would be very happy if the galaxy is made to feel bigger than one family.
Well, it might
one
be
family
not from
can
Jakku,
still be
but a family that's new.
Yeah, it's exactly not just a girl from Jakku, but in the sense of like she's just a new character who's from
a new character. Yeah, that'd be cool.
With no kind of,
Steve,
she might have a tie-in.
I'm down with that.
Be a really direct one.
Steve's getting all Dr. Zeus on us.
It's a real shame that Jakku's actually not called Ipanema then.
Yeah.
John Williams would have had half his work done for him then, wouldn't he, with the theme?
Dun, 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 dun.
Mike, thank you so much for your questions. Really interesting, really thoughtful, and I really appreciate them because they're along the same lines, the way we think, and that's awesome.
That always helps.
All right, let's move on to... I got this email the other day. I'm not sure who it's from. Can anyone pronounce this name?
Webless now.
Webless now?
Yeah, so it's Jay.
It's like
I'm wondering if it's RJ.
Character that buys it on Aliens, isn't it? Where's Basky?
Wibbly Snow.
It might be Polish, actually.
Right.
Yeah, it might just be American.
Wibbly Snow.
It's Wibbly Snow.
Wibbly
Snow.
Yeah, it's someone we've already had a communication with, but for some reason their name hasn't popped up in the email client very clearly, and it's all I've got is part of the email address. So my apologies if I can't credit you correctly with this question. But
is that Jay?
This is Jay.
Name, isn't it, Jay?
Yeah, and I think
Jay Snow. I think. What do I know?
We're going to go with Jay or JW for the time being, and then if you can let us know, and I'll update our address book so that we've got your proper name in for next time. So he writes, not sure if you guys covered it, but when the ground between Rey and Kylo splits, it sounds like Snow is exhaling, or maybe a breathy grunt. Also, here is the scene I mentioned in Rebels with Kylo Ren's lightsaber shown in the temple. So the lightsaber design.
Crossguard.
I've put a little bit of blurb in there from Wikipedia about the crossguard. This is a link that Jay provided, so I've just cut out some of the text and pasted it in there. We can go through that in a minute. I imagine you guys already talked about it. I missed it. I just haven't listened to that episode yet, so I think Jay's working his way back. Don't go too far back because the quality really, really does drop off a cliff. So was Snoke responsible for the ground opening up between Kylo Ren and Rey during their duel on Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens?
No.
No? Okay.
Absolutely not.
Will of the Force.
Oh.
All is as the Force wills it.
Just an exploding planet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That too.
I suggested this before.
It's just that. It's just...
Sorry,
yeah, it's just because it's just a bit too perfect, isn't it?
Bit of cinematic license to an event that was already taking place.
Between them. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that happens though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that exhale could be, that planet dying.
Or a load of air or gas releasing.
I really liked the idea.
Why would Snoke want to split the thing? He would want them to get together, wouldn't he?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Or is he using her as a
Rob? You weren't there, unfortunately. This might have predated your presence on the podcast, but
glorious arrival.
It'll certainly predate mine as well.
Paul and Steve,
if it does mine, it definitely does yours, mate.
No, Paul, it was here on a movie night. We weren't recording, and we'd sat
definitely
down.
Wasn't on then.
No, you definitely wasn't on. We'd sat down with Andy, our friend Andy, and we had Force Awakens on, and we were discussing it. And then when this scene happened, I said, "Do you think Snoke created that cavern between the two to stop Rey from killing Kylo because it doesn't fit with Snoke's plans?" And Andy just turned to me and said, "No." It was with such disdain. He was absolutely disgusted by this
Andy.
thought.
He says he has that tone with every question you ask him.
And I thought,
you want the last slice of pizza, mate?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that he would want her to kill Kylo so that she turns to the dark side. She's obviously stronger than him, and Snoke would be even happier.
But the seduction of Rey hasn't even started yet for Snoke. If he could have if he was like Palpatine, he would have wanted to get the next apprentice a little bit closer before dispatching the last one, Pit them against each other, and then if the original apprentice kills the newcomer, fine, you haven't lost anything. If the newcomer kills the older apprentice, then you've got the stronger one. So the seduction of Rey hasn't really started yet. He's kind of whispering in Rey's ear, isn't he? Like, end Kylo Ren. He's trying to force her, but I don't think she's really accepting that yet. No. So I wondered at the time if he would have just thought, nope, we need to stop this now, split the ground open, and then get Hux to fetch him back.
You don't remember that whole fourth wall moment where she looks at the screen and goes, "No."
Yeah. Andy Rey.
And the bit on Dakar where Rey comes off the Falcon, Chewbacca goes past Leia, and you just hear her mumble, "It's rubbish, isn't it?" And Chewie's like, "Yep, terrible theory."
It was all,
Obviously, you just hear
very Deadpool. Yeah, but I had the subtitles on, so I read it. I read his disdain. There was no escape for me. I couldn't get away.
It's growling with disdain.
Yeah.
Well,
I need to point out that Jay hasn't really sort of suggested that is the case. I'm not sure if you guys go, but when the ground splits between the two, it sounds like Snoke is this. He's not suggesting, I don't think, that Snoke had any part in that. But that was my theory. So
that may well be the case. We just don't know.
No, we don't. Do we? Snoke's God knows how far away. If he could split a planet like that, he wouldn't need any
he just contributes to the planet's already going, but he's maybe contributing to it.
Yeah, but he wouldn't need any minions, but he could do things vicariously like that across the galaxy and destroy. He wouldn't even need Starkiller.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah, true.
That is a good point. Yeah. Steve, now you with the logic, honestly. All right, well, let's
can I explore my Will of the Force thing?
Yeah, go on then.
I thought you were going to say sexuality, so
please. Really simple one.
Turn the camera
the Will of the Force saying he's not lost.
Saying who's not lost, sorry?
Ben's not lost, not really. Not truly.
Oh, so you think the will of the Force, it could have been the Force that was stopping Ben from dying at that point?
Preserving Ben.
Or...
The Force doesn't take sides.
All right, well, what about if it's the Force preventing Rey from using the dark, like stepping too close to the dark side and killing Ben? Less about saving Ben, more about preventing Rey from falling to the dark side.
Well, they're both kind of
They're the same thing, aren't
they? Yeah. Well, ultimately, if you think about it from this point of view, if we're thinking that there's going to be lots of themes in The Last Jedi about how the Force has become too dogmatic and it needs to become more nuanced, if she never gets to Luke because she joins up with Snoke because she's lopped Ben's head off, that doesn't happen, does it? So then the Force doesn't get its kind of neutral, obedient servant, its kind of servant leader. It sticks with these kind of dogmatic poles of existence, and that's not what the will of the Force is. So my theory is actually quite watertight, Steve. You're just a cynic. And
What else? I did an Ewa quote, no one noticed.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Don't see many of them on a t-shirt.
So
let's just look at this crossguard lightsaber from Rebels very, very quickly then. So this
quite stable.
Yeah, it's very stable, right? So because it's got an uncracked crystal in it, a green one.
Yeah.
So the crossguard lightsaber was an ancient lightsaber design that dated back to the Great Scourge of Malachor. It typically emitted 3 blades, a primary blade and 2 raw power vents known as quillions. And the quillions are tributaries of the main blade, and the emitter shrouds were used on each of the lateral vents to protect the wielder's hands from harm. To create the quillions, an array of focusing crystal activators were used to split the energy from the lightsaber crystal. So this design is ancient. I think it might have been something that Kylo adopted more out of necessity than anything else for those exhaust ports to vent off the power from an already unstable weapon. So I think with Rebels, obviously it's calling up to what they've seen on the big screen and saying, look, we can do it too. But it's also showing how the design would have been adopted by a Jedi. And with Kylo, he's using it more out of necessity, I think, than anything else, because that thing would probably explode with that cracked crystal if it didn't have a way to vent off some of that energy.
There's a thing about this particular photo which does irk me a touch, which is that shot is literally the only bit you see of that lightsaber, because it sputters out almost instantly. Yeah, and such a big deal is made of that shot when actually it's a tiny bit of an episode. Yeah, it's really just it's a fan service thing, isn't it? Like you said, it's like we can do that. We can have a cool looking lightsaber too.
Yeah, it's also sort of, in a way, it's kind of saying, if we took a step away from Star Wars as it unfolds in real time, and you looked at The Force Awakens and you'd already watched Rebels, you're going to go, oh, well, there's that weapon from Rebels. Yeah. And it's kind of enriching the experience we're seeing by going back and peppering these bits around. Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap up Jay's question then, or comments with an observation that, this tri-bladed lightsaber is pretty much just an Easter egg in Rebels. And I think I'll have to go back and check with The Force Awakens that the sound design might be very organic in that scene.
Going to do that in a minute, actually.
And I might have wandered us off the beaten path a little bit by talking about my theory that Andy really didn't like. All right, we're going to still no return of Connor, so I'm not sure if he's ever going to come back to us. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into some, not much, but some exciting Star Wars news. So we'll be right back. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, you can do so by becoming a TSW sponsor. For as little as £1 per month, given securely via PayPal, you'll help us keep the lights on here at Talk Star Wars. When you become a TSW sponsor, we will automatically make you a TSW VIP. As a VIP, you'll get access to an exclusive stream of content that provides you with a daily podcast called the TSW Kessel Run, membership to the TSW VIP Facebook group, priority releases of shows such as the TSW Toy Box and TSW Comics. You'll also get priority access to the TSW Feature Com series and weekly Facebook Live and AMA sessions. There are also newsletters and a monthly prize draw. Head to talkstarwars.co.uk/support and become a TSW sponsor today, and the Force will be with you always. And we're back. So you just had the VIP sponsorship spot, and we've come back to indulge in some Star Wars news, and I'm not going to do it again. Third time's a charm. Right, first up, we're going to look at this. The news that broke last week was that there's more than likely going to be an Obi-Wan movie directed by Billy Elliot, director Stephen Daldry. So because Steve and Paul, you went around last week, and Rob and I discussed it a little bit at the end of the episode, I thought it might be interesting to get your take on the potential for an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie directed by Stephen Daldry. So, chaps, what do you make of it?
A ballet director.
He's not a ballet. He's a pure character director, actually. The director excites me.
Ooh.
But I've never really been fully invested in an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, which I've said over and over and over again. I'm afraid I haven't. It's as simple as so.
And why is that?
Why?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
Well, I mean, okay, I can't really word it. I mean, the guy's a multi-decade hermit living on Tatooine. What story is there to possibly tell? Mm-hmm. There could be all sorts. There's all sorts that could have possibly happened, but at the same time, there's a reason he's a multi-decade solo living hermit, because he's supposed to be living on Tatooine, sort of thing. So, if anything major had happened to him, I think the general populace of Tatooine would have known a bit more about it, and so on. I think would have been a bigger deal for Beru and Owen as well, maybe forcing the fact that Luke can't stay here anymore and stuff like that. I don't know, but I just think his life has been reasonably purposely sterile for the last few decades, and I don't know where they might go with it. So.
That's fair enough.
He's going to be nipping off, obviously, and he's going to nip off to Dagobah and see Yoda.
For tea and crumpets.
Oh, don't even joke about that.
I'm not joking.
Oh.
What's wrong with that?
Plenty.
Another one who hasn't got a soul. Mark, kick him off.
No, I'm with him, Steve.
When kick you off, I'm here on my own. Hi, welcome to Talk
Welcome to Talk Avatar.
It might just be easier to kick you off, Steve. It's I think it's highly unlikely that they'll have Obi-Wan leave Tatooine, and this speaks largely to Paul's concerns, doesn't it? That if he can't, we know why he can't leave Tatooine, because of Luke. So
so he's not next to Luke, is he? So anything can happen.
Oh, we don't.
Unless he's in the same room as Luke.
We don't know. This might be an area. This might be something that forms a large part of that story and that development of those characters, is that he might have been an active part of Luke's life up until something happened that forces Owen to say, you got to stay away. It didn't happen that night, did it? When he said, here's a free baby, and they said, right, don't come back.
So, free baby?
Yeah, the end of Revenge of the Sith. You've won this free baby.
Him or know who he is. So I don't.
Hello, I'm from Prizebusters Warehouse.
Yeah, but it could have happened. It could have happened quite early in his life, though, Steve, and then he's just forgotten about it. You know.
I think it's Obi-Wan, The Adventures of Cross Stitch. That's going to be
Adventures in Cross Stitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Knit one, pearl one. Knit one, pearl.
Well, that's knitting. It's not cross stitch.
Yeah, I know.
But
that's all I know,
your
Steve.
Bloody
I'm sorry, Steve, that my references to crafts aren't as finely honed as yours. I'd spend my time looking up Star Wars stuff for this show. Forgive me.
That still doesn't make you cool, by the way.
Yes, it does.
I'm well aware.
Consider
in this room,
the discussion group we're in the midst of, Stephen.
Yeah.
I know.
Also point out that it makes me far more popular on Twitter than you.
If he doesn't leave Tatooine, I'm with Paul. If he does leave Tatooine, I'm with me. If he's on Tatooine doing knitting and cross stitch, I'm with Rob.
So now you're with me in terms of now he's doing every craft under the sun. He's got a lot of time to kill. He's probably tried them all.
If it's literally like a DIY film and a how-to, if it's a how-to film, I can't see the point of that.
Well, let's flip this over then.
It's not
Mark,
gonna be a
you've been
garden
after
show,
an
is it?
Obi-Wan Kenobi movie for a long time.
I have, yeah, very much so.
What do you want? What do you want to see?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I did put a post out today on Talk Star Wars where I outlined my thoughts for an Obi-Wan movie that could explore a life that he had in that 19-year space of time that he was deeply invested in and that he enjoyed more than anything. You know, that he... Well, I just listened over the weekend to the audiobook Kenobi, which did explore like this small life that Obi-Wan was living as he was getting settled into life on Tatooine. But I would like to land in this story maybe sort of 8 or 10 years into that life when he's a part of a community and then something happens that brings a threat to Tatooine, a threat that comes looking for Jedi just during the Purge, a threat that comes looking... I want it to be a Sith Inquisitor so that we can keep Vader and the Emperor in the background of this film. So send out a group of people that we already know are active in the Star Wars universe, somebody that's got a lot to prove and a lot to earn if they kill a Jedi and bring a Jedi back to their master, you know. If he turns up on Tatooine, then we can meet Obi-Wan when he's an active part of this community, a healthy relationship with the Lars, a presence in Luke's life, and then this Sith thing turns up, and it's a bit like Visionaries where Maul turns up to kill Obi-Wan and discovers Luke. And as soon that will be the trigger, I think, that would set Obi-Wan off. If Luke is then under threat because he has emerged, he's popped up on the radar of the Sith again, then he would have to kill that Sith. And that is the point where I think Owen would say, you just got to stay away, you're too dangerous.
Yeah, you might have an angle from if you imagine Luke to be almost the golden child situation, that whole, defend, the trophy situation might be interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Tatooine was sold to us as this just literally barren, beyond nothing sort of thing. And Mos Eisley was the excitement, wasn't it, when the film came out, sort of thing. So, I'd just be.
We've done. I think Paul's right in the sense we had Jakku, we've had Tatooine at the wazoo. I'm fed up with desert planets now. But if it's a character-driven film, then maybe it won't matter. But
that's why the director excites me.
Is what's his face going to be in it? Has he been confirmed?
No, nothing's confirmed yet. It's the only person.
The film's not even technically confirmed.
No.
Is it? This is the Joshua Tree one, right? That's the working title.
What?
Where
Isn't
have
the
you got
working
that
title
from?
for this?
What are you talking about?
I read it on Splash Film the other day.
I don't think it has a working title. I think it's.
I'm sure it was, because it's named the U2 album. Hang on, let me go.
There's no script and there's no star. There's just Steve and Dordry at the moment.
There's officially a film's not been confirmed.
Splash Film. Obi-Wan movie working title reportedly revealed. Joshua Tree, which is a.
When was that? Today?
Joshua today.
Oh,
this
right,
is
cool.
Obi-Wan film is Joshua. This is not this because it's the name of a species of desert tree and also name of a national park in Southern California.
Yeah. Interesting.
So there you go. You heard it. You don't need Talk Star Wars anymore. Just go to my Twitter page.
Patreon.
I'll give you all the news you need.
Buy a bee habitat and you'll get all the Star Wars news you could possibly desire. There you go.
Yeah, you could possibly desire. At least say it in a Star Wars-esque voice.
Habitats from a reputable vendor.
Joshua Tree's a really interesting. That's a really interesting and evocative sort of working title. So I wonder where that came. Steve, does it tell you where that came from? On Slash Film, where did they get that info?
What it says. It says, according to a Mega Underground, the working title for the Obi-Wan film is Joshua Tree. That's not just the name of the U2 album, it's the name of the species of desert tree and also the name of a national park in Southern California that's not far from LA. What could it mean? There are a couple of things that instantly come to mind here. The arid landscape of Joshua Tree National Park seems like Lucasfilm may be nodding to the desert terrain of Tatooine, the planet on which we saw first of all Ben Kenobi back in the original Star Wars. And Mega Underground speculates that this title could mean that the production intends to be physically shoot this spin-off movie in the national park, but that seems like a major stretch. It's possible Lucasfilm already knows that they want to set the spin-off on Tatooine because that seems like the most logical planet for everyone's story set between the events of the first two trilogies. In fact, in addition to the canonical, can't pronounce things tonight, the canonical episode of Star Wars Rebels that took place around this time, there's already one canonical Star Wars comic in particular that could serve as inspiration for the film story. And then there's a load of other junk.
So that would be the story of the split between Owen and Kenobi, and the way Kenobi's having an influence over events on Tatooine, sort of protecting the Lars from Jabba the Hutt and giving Luke the parts he needs. Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, but what will really be cool would be a bit of vengeance, i.e. Darth Maul.
I've already had that in Rebels, so not going to do that in the film.
They cover that much later on in the in Obi-Wan's time.
He's got his Flymo legs.
Yes.
Yeah. Not quite as dramatic as the comic book, but they have already used that asset now, which is why to me it needs to be, because like Rob, you said before, if you have to have an adversary that causes the lightsaber to come out, because that's what the fans are going to be baying for, isn't it? That they're going to want a lightsaber duel in there somewhere. So
the fans are going to be asking for a lot of things that probably don't necessarily make sense. But
I think the tree bit is irrelevant here, because there's a tree plays a predominant part in The Last Jedi, and it's Luke. So why not have a tree with his predecessor? Maybe there is one of those forced trees on Tatooine we don't know about.
Yeah, there could be.
I think that's taking the working title a little bit too literally.
Yeah,
there's also a reference to that in last film as well, that actually we've heard rumours that Luke is on Arc 2 in part to protect a special tree from the original Jedi Temple.
Yeah.
So perhaps there's more to this working title.
But then we're rumor mongering on top of rumor mongering. That's like
but they do
speculating. I mean, there is a tree on Arc 2, and there is a tree in Lost Stars. These force trees are starting to these force trees are starting to form a part of but now lore. We're speculating now based on speculation based on a movie that hasn't officially been announced. Yeah.
So now it's like,
but that's what we do.
Ghost hunting.
That is what we do. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. I think it's more about the Joshua tree being that singular figure out in the desert. That's Obi-Wan. He's the Joshua tree. If you ask me, I think
it's a bit metaphorical rather than
it's more to
arboreal.
Be evocative of that man's status out there in the wilderness. But well, there you go. That's interesting. And it's interesting the position you guys have taken on that as well. Because it does, like we said earlier, I do think this movie is going to be quite divisive, and it'll be most people that just think leave well enough alone, and another group of people saying we'll tell stories about characters we haven't met yet. Why keep going back to the ones we know? And it's just because that's unfortunately it's what people like, isn't it? They like the comfort of what they know.
There is a bit of that to it, yeah.
So they will get bolder, I think, as time goes on. But right now, I think they're taking their chances in the saga movies with these new characters. And so the standalone movies are going to be as safe as possible, I think, with events and characters that we are comfortable with. But
I
you used the word bold. Do you think there's going to be a stone theme?
Yeah, I do.
We're going to go on speculation on
the
speculation.
Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger's going to be it. Mick Jagger is Snoke.
Well, all right.
Nice.
Yeah, Kylo Ren, all right.
All right, should we move on to some Last Jedi spoilers? Last Jedi news. I think we're going to need to give a spoiler warning because some of this stuff, I mean, there's a couple of spoilers. There's a couple of pictures in here that definitely spoilers. So if you are trying to keep yourself pure for Last Jedi, then I think you might want to jump out now.
Night, Steve.
Otherwise, hang around. And hear us.
I forget last week's podcast. I'm not going to remember.
Well, you weren't on it, so you definitely have forgotten something.
Hang on, I rest my case in point. I rest my case.
Rest your pointy
case. I didn't even realise I wasn't on last week.
Case in point?
You rested what? A pencil case?
Okay, right. Last
I was
Jedi
being
news.
blunt at the time.
Adam Driver has indicated that there will be an unexpected twist for Kylo Ren in the
Not
last
anymore.
Jedi.
Of course he's going to say that.
I think it
Might
will
as well say-
hopefully be unexpected, he says. So, I did hear, I think it was the guy who was on Tumbling Saber talking about this the other day, but if it was expected, we wouldn't really be interested, would we? So what do you think this could be? Is it going to be redemption this early on in the story, or is Kylo going to die?
He's going to do something horrendous.
You think he's going to do something horrendous?
Well, what we've been saying, he's not quite...
Kill Luke?
He's not quite... he's not quite all the way there. He's not really bad. He's, the book kind of goes with the idea that he's weaker than he thought he'd be and stuff like that. I think he's going to do something really significant and really horrendous in order to try and force himself to become the big bad.
Bresnikan's coverage did quite a nail down that he's completely fallen to the dark side.
Right.
That was in Bresnikan's EW coverage a couple of weeks ago.
But it just seems like if that's
Sith.
the case, it seems a little bit odd that they would use that specific wording in the book.
Yes.
It does. I don't fully buy it. I think that's wishful thinking on Kylo Ren's part. I mean, we might be led to believe that he might think that, but I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that they would go to great lengths they've worded that specifically. So I don't think it necessarily holds water that he's fully gone that quickly after the film where he's been faltering and, showing kind of weakness in the micro expressions and stuff.
Don't you think, though, all of this is contrived? Like, obviously, Lucasfilm's saying, right, you can say this now. I mean, they're guided to say these things, aren't they? To generate...
They're briefed on certain subjects, aren't they?
Yeah, I think Anthony's getting press releases that contain... Like, I get press releases for Talk Star Wars from Lucasfilm for the smaller stuff, for like the Lego Star Wars TV show and things like that. And the press releases contain very specific language so that you've got something to work from. Because obviously they can't give you the entire arc they can't give Anthony the entire arc of a movie, they can't give me the entire arc of a TV series, but they do give you specific language for you to pick parts from and form a thought around. But
it's so ambiguous, isn't it? If Lucasfilm were to say, we're indicating that there will be no twist for Kylo Ren in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to go and see that then. I mean, of course there's going to be
by
twists.
the numbers, now you're talking.
But then,
the whole film's twists, isn't it? That's what
Adam Driver's probably sitting there thinking, some of the audience is going to expect redemption for Kylo Ren. Some of the audience is going to expect Kylo Ren to become like the next big bad.
Yeah.
But implied in what he's saying is it's going to be, hopefully you won't have guessed it. Yeah. If you think he's going to be redeemed, you're wrong. If you think he's going to be the big bag, you're wrong.
So what does each of us think the unexpected thing is? I think he's going to lose the Force completely. He's going to leave him, or Snoke's going to pull it out of him.
Ooh, okay.
Oh my. Paul, you were going to say something.
Well, he has been letting him down.
Was
Paul?
Oh, you took a deep breath as if you were going to say something.
No, I dropped something.
Oh, right.
I'm wondering.
You're breathing to them.
Is he signed on for the last movie?
We don't know.
They all have, I think.
I wonder if we're going to lose him in this movie.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Yes and no, because my theory about Sith possession. I wonder whether Snoke will replace Ben Solo.
Oh, okay.
At the heart
his
of
physical
Kylo
form will remain, but his spirit will be suppressed.
Yes. And then so the physical form of Snoke we won't see beyond this movie. It will be Kylo in that throne with the Praetorian guards around him.
Okay.
I think it's too what's the word? Convenient and too corny and too contrived and too canon. I think it won't. It has to be quite simple in these movies.
Okay.
I don't like the idea, and it's kind of, oh really? What, did they want to save money on CGI for Snoke? That kind of thing.
But not as many people. I mean, for a naked man, you've got cynical clothing pants, hats, and all sorts on. It's not all the audience is going to go in with that frame of mind, though, Steve. Most people don't go in expecting to be disappointed. So a lot of people are going to go into this thing, and they're going to be shown a new element of Star Wars.
Are these people enjoying themselves or something?
How dare they?
Potentially, they're going to go. They're going to go in, and when Rian Johnson says, "Look, here's something original. Here's something you haven't seen before in Star Wars."
No,
and we see
it'll make us a load of money.
And we see the young bad guy replace the old bad guy. I think that'd be really interesting, and I think it qualifies for everything Ryan's been promising us. Unexpected, bloody weird. I think it's.
I'm going to say something that Paul will say if I don't say it.
What?
But Kylo Ren is one of the best things about The Force Awakens.
Yes.
Sorry. Is that what you're going to say, Paul?
No, I was just enjoying the fact that you said, I'm going to say something that Paul is going to say otherwise, and then you called him Kylo Ring.
Freud.
You think Paul's a complete simpleton.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that.
Paul, what do you think, Paul?
I said what I think.
How would you feel about Snoke inhabiting Kylo's...
No, I don't want that to be the case.
No,
I want him to be working on his own volition.
Yeah, that would be. I would like that. I would like.
Well, it's just too easy to redeem.
I would like them to, but I also like the idea that this guy's being sold a bill of goods by this Snoke character. Like,
yeah, Anakin was in a similar way.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. But at the same time, the guy works on his own volition and his own requirement. And otherwise, too easy to redeem. You know, it's like, oh, it wasn't actually him that killed Han. It wasn't actually him that did this. It wasn't actually him that did that. No. Deal with it.
Oh, yeah, no. I like that. I like the fact that that's everything he's done thus far is Kylo. I like that. You know, he's trying to become something evil. He's trying to manifest this beast that his grandfather was, in his estimation. But I like the idea that the lie that's being told throughout the Sith all along is that you're anything but just a replacement body for me. You're anything but just a spare part for me. And that I think that's a really interesting idea, that Palpatine's plan for Anakin might have been to inhabit that body at some point when his body just decays from the inside out through the use of the dark side. That's what I'm seeing with Snoke, and I would really like the idea of Snoke inhabiting Kylo Ren, and then you get a guy that thinks I'm setting myself up to be the big bad, and then he's lost forever because he's consumed by this other person who takes over his form. I know it's wacky. I know it's weird. I know we've never seen it before in Star Wars. And it's going to be a huge challenge, but that's what we're being told to expect from these films. Something original, something weird, something that's never been done before. If this is the case, it could retcon everything we've seen before, reframe it for us cognitively inside this new Sith lore. And I'm just going off what I've heard, that it's weird, unexpected, it's adding new, challenging stuff to Star Wars. Well, that's it, isn't it? It may not happen, and in a way, I think part of me hopes it doesn't happen, because I'm with you, Paul. I like a bad guy that makes choices. I don't want the sympathetic bad guy. I want him to be making decisions and owning his own destiny. But this, to me, seems to fit with what Lucasfilm, or at least what Ryan, is telling us.
Yeah, but his Snoke theory sucks.
Apparently so. The next bit of news.
Can I throw one more thing in the mix?
Please do.
Since we've got the ideas since we're talking about unexpected things, I'm just going to throw in a completely unexpected one, which I don't think anybody's mentioned. There's an
Are they spanners for pineapples, or are they spanners made from pineapples?
I assume the latter. Am I wrong, Paul?
That's why I said
for those who don't.
Kylo Ring.
For those who've not picked up on it before, Marc's tickle words are fruits and tools. So combinations of the two are even better. I was just thinking, since we're going for things that are unexpected, I'm going to throw something into the mix that's not been talked about, because it's not. I don't think it's happening, but I think it might be hilarious if that turned out to be the case. There's an even bigger bad than Snoke.
Mm-hmm.
and Snoke's the public persona that's put out as a sympathetic face. And there's actually a bigger bad behind him pulling all the strings, and his name is Ren.
Oh. And the Knights of Ren.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is not a bad idea.
It kind of. Well, like I say, I just wanted to throw something in that I've certainly never mentioned it before as a theory.
I like that.
Popped in my head.
I like it too.
The Snoke's actually, it's not even a Wizard of Oz man behind the curtain.
How do we know Snoke's name's not Snoke Ren?
Don't know. Yeah.
It could be. Or it could be Ren Snoke.
Yeah. Do you know my full name is actually Snorkel? Which if you rearrange it a bit...
Says Dave.
Yes, Snorkeler is, you can't spell Snorkeler without Snoke Ren. Credits.
Credit.
He's going to...
and then he comes with a scuba suit in the next round of action figures.
Comes back with a pineapple spanner. All right, let's move on to this next bit of news, because I think this ties into what we've just been talking about with Kylo. Could Snoke be using ancient Sith magic in The Last Jedi, like the cauldron that the Night Sisters used in the Clone Wars TV show, and Palpatine and Dooku used to summon, or to try and convince Yoda that they'd summoned Bane? And then there's an image in the show notes of the place set that includes the Praetorian Guard, Snoke, and the throne. And right next to it is this weird blue thing.
Right.
We touched on this briefly last week, Rob, I think, where we suggested that perhaps he'd just been down to Sharper Image and bought a lightning ball, but it could have something more to do with the plot, no?
Possibly.
So
there's no annotations, I take it,
on the
playset.
Not relating to this, no.
Okay.
We had the show notes we had last week had all the annotations that were available. Yeah. Nothing sort of indicated any detail about this thing, but it could, like the magic side of things, the Sith magic and the witches and all that sort of stuff. If they start to bring that in, we could. All bets are off, because they're starting to do other really weird stuff. Then, aren't they?
Yeah.
I just thought that was kind of. Any thoughts on what this might be, chaps? A round TV or hollow projector?
I hope it's not. Yeah, I hope it's not a crystal ball or anything.
It looks
silly
like one of those
that.
electric things, with the plasma balls.
Yeah.
So some kind of aesthetic piece.
So it's just a yuppie. And this is on his desk with his
first order lottery machine.
Yeah, I picked it up in Guam, a few years ago. And, it just spoke to me, man.
First number is 11. Second number is
Master of the
38.
Knights of House.
Who's got 2187?
I don't think it's anything of consequence.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the lottery.
Is it R2 laying down asleep?
It could be, yeah. That's the
sleeping
top of
droid,
R2's head. Yeah, sleeping droid. I don't think we're going to get anything out of this image, are we? But it's kind of interesting.
I find the arrow above it very.
That's not part of the playset. That's
buy the arrow.
It does say in the small print.
I was all over
arrow not included.
Arrow not included.
Not to scale.
All right. Let's talk about Porgs. Nice one, Steve. Let's talk about Porgs. Are Porgs smaller than we originally thought?
No, because I always thought they were about the size of the little thing that sit on your hand. I envisioned them to be anything between 8 and 12 inches tall maximum.
Right. Well, these little things that we see here. This was an image from a short animation. They call them Star Wars blips on the YouTube channel. Okay. And it's entitled Keep Away, where the Porgs have stolen BB-8's head and they're running around with it. And his body rolls in, picks the head up, and then they chase him off out of frame. It's a really endearing, quite cute little cartoon. And they are
time code.
They are teeny tiny little things.
Yeah. That's about the size I pictured.
About a third of the size of BB-8. Really, I thought they might.
I pictured them as kind of scrunched down penguins.
Yeah, but they're tiny at the moment. BB-8's head is only like 6 inches high. Right?
No, but that's basically they're the height of his ball.
No, they're not.
They're about half the height.
BB-8's got a lot bigger balls than you think.
No, he hasn't got all of
You just wanted to say that, Steve.
No, his ball's massive. They're tiny.
He's rolling around on it and everything.
They're about half the size of his body. And
okay.
He's about knee high, right?
Yeah, they're about 8 inches tall then.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know what 8 inches is. I've got a ruler in my drawer.
And there's also some production audio on this animation, so you can hear what they sound like. They're pretty cool sounding.
I already heard what they sound like. They've got the action figures on toy shelves.
Yeah,
they're quite cute sounding.
This seems to be a clearer version.
Car woman from Plane, Trains and All.
They don't sound all that dissimilar from BB-8 himself, actually.
They do Walken impression. Wow,
that's him. Yeah,
Pogs.
Christopher Porken.
Christopher Porken. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, well, you know.
So I recommend heading over and checking out this little clip anyway, because the audio for it is really cool, and I am quite surprised at how small they are. And I also think that they're made out to be quite mischievous, and that might be why Luke needs that little electric prod that he's got, because they are buggers.
I'm really wondering how they're going to fit into the context of 2, to be honest.
I think they're just going to be
part of the landscape.
Set decoration. Yeah.
You think they've been chewing on Luke's pipe like Minot?
Possibly.
They've got skills, though. Yeah.
I
don't know. They've introduced.
Or is he making furniture for them?
They've introduced new characters, Paul, in the EW release, which are called caretakers. And I think they're the creatures that have the skills, because they wear clothing.
Like lizard nuns.
Yeah, they wear clothing and things like that, and they're sentient. So I think that they're more what we were expecting the Porgs to be, and the Porgs actually might just be sort of wild creatures, just sort of filling space,
stealing heads
a little bit. Yeah.
Okay,
that's Porg talk over with. I know that Stephen at Roku Depot has been doing a Porg count up on all the shows, so the more we can say Porg, the better. All right, new vehicles from The Last Jedi were revealed last night on the Star Wars show.
How many Porgs you reckon you can get one of them?
I'm going to get wound up in a minute by one of those pictures.
Porg.
Why? That's going to wind me up about these pictures.
Okay, all right, let's get to that then. So the first thing we've got is the AT-M6, which was previously referred to as the First Order Heavy Assault Walker. And
that size of that. I'm starting trying to make Steve's life difficult. Porg.
It's gigantic, this thing.
Enormous.
It's named M6 after the code name for this cannon that's mounted on its back, and that's why it's got the gorilla stance to offset the weapon when the weapon fires. So, and this looks. There was another image floating around, which I included in the post I wrote this morning about this reveal, which is a frame lifted from some footage, and I think that might be from the next trailer.
Okay.
It looks really, really good, and it's got that sort of weight that the Walkers had in Rogue One. You know, they had that scale and feel of scale and weight to them, didn't they? Much more than the originals had, I think.
That one. The next one, I don't like for one very good reason.
Why have you moved further away from the microphone?
Adjust your mic, Steve.
I know you're upset.
Steve.
Sorry, mate.
Adjust your mic.
Hello.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
I've got the wrong ear in.
That'll do it.
Sorry. Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better. So you were saying you didn't really like this?
Well, no.
First
Quite
Order.
obviously, they couldn't let the super weapon lie, could they? And they've chucked one underneath that.
Yeah, this is an 8 kilometer long Star Destroyer called the Dreadnought, and it's got orbital cannons underneath. It's got 2 orbital cannons, so it could be above the planet, sort of bombarding the surface with these huge.
Not so bad.
Yeah, it's not.
How big is a super Star Destroyer?
Smaller than this one. It's about
really
Manhattan Island size, isn't it? I think.
Well, Manhattan Island is about 24 miles long, isn't it? Or 12 miles long?
19. Apparently, a Super Star Destroyer is 19 kilometers long.
Yeah,
really?
So it's not quite.
Well, this one's 8 kilometers, so that's about smaller than that. This, can you see on the drawing in the middle there? There's a little Death Star like. It's a Death Star like
5 times the length of a normal Imperial Star Destroyer.
This one is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Oh, it's got a dish.
It's about 1,600 meters. So it's about a mile. Star Destroyer is about a mile long.
It's got a trench with gun emplacements, and it's got the dish.
They didn't learn, did they, about the trench?
No.
We need a weakness.
Please try and build in a weakness. I'd like to sabotage my own
but that's
attempts.
not kyber-driven.
I suppose deep down I want to fail.
No,
I let
they
them
don't
catch
create
me
that.
every time.
it's not. But I think you will probably see X-wings flying down that trench towards that array in the middle. I think would be the only way to bring this ship down. But then maybe we're being shown that, so that's what we assume. Who knows?
Okay, can I ask a
cool
contentious question?
Yes.
Why
It's
break,
never stopped you.
Why break a habit?
Yeah.
Is that not going to wind everyone up that yet again they're destroying a big thing by finding its weakness?
If that happens, it'll probably wind a few people up for sure.
Yeah,
I think
you'll be first in
three
line,
of them
Steve.
have got to be sitting in here. We
Well,
would that not wind you up, Rob?
I would prefer that they didn't do that.
Yeah, I would prefer that. If they didn't do a trench run, I don't mind them blowing it up, but I would prefer it. It may be like a sabotage on board or something. I could deal with that, but I wouldn't be so keen on a trench run. That would just be, again.
I know we are reading into a picture a lot. But
Yes.
Well, I mean, again, that's what we do.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
Paul, what do you make of this dreadnought?
Peace with it.
I can make a hat, a scarf.
You like that joke,
Paul's
don't
gone.
you, Steve?
Neck's going to snap.
Paul, are you still with us?
Wear that scarf.
Paulie Paul.
No.
Paulie Paul. Paul.
There's some definite snoring going on in the background now.
Oh, he's bored with the pictures.
Oh, is that what it is?
Is Paul actually asleep?
No.
Porg.
Muted.
He's muted.
You silly twit.
What do you think of this dreadnought, Paul?
I quite like it, actually. I just like this sort of squashed Star Destroyer thing going on. I quite like it.
It's gone for girth instead of
What
length.
do you think of the dangly bit hanging down from between its legs?
Hasn't got any legs.
No, but it's got
Don't know.
the meat and two veg hanging down.
Don't know. It's a primitive weapon.
A primitive weapon.
I'm with you. I like it. So are we an even split? Two of us like it and two not so much.
I didn't say I didn't
dig
like it.
I dig it.
like
Oh,
the
here we go.
potential.
Potential.
I don't like the idea that it's going to be, let's go and deliver the plan so that we can destroy this thing.
You're worried.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
worried
no,
it's going to be another.
I don't think
super
that'll be
weapon.
the centerpiece. I think this might just be like Vader's Super
Snoke's
Star
command
Destroyer. I don't even think it's Snoke's command ship. This one.
It's very phallic, isn't it? That knob-esque thing.
Yes.
When you call it such, how could it possibly be anything else?
But it does look.
The orbital. The orbital.
Appendage, Mark.
No, we're moving on. We're not going to do any more.
It's the belly penis ray gun, Steve.
I don't need you to zoom. I can look up.
If I never hear that again, it will be too soon. All right, let's move on to Han Solo news. So Han Solo, the as yet untitled Han Solo Star Wars film, lost Michael K. Williams this week when his character was cut. So Michael's a star of The Wire and Boardwalk Empire, and due to the schedule surrounding these reshoots, he was unavailable because he's in Africa at the moment filming a film.
Right.
So he was cut.
He was cut. The film he's filming at the moment for Gideon Raff is called the Red Sea Diving Resort.
Okay.
And that keeps him busy until he returns to LA at the end of the summer, I think, to pick up filming on his TV show, which keep him busy until November. And so with this film coming out in May, they just don't have time to wait for him, unfortunately.
That's a shame.
So they cut the character. And what Michael's saying is, well, I've got a quote in here that I took from Vanity Fair. So this is Michael commenting on the excised character he was playing. When Ron got hired to finish out the film, there were some reshoot issues that needed to be done in regards to my character in order for it to match the new direction which the producers wanted Ron to carry the film. So, unfortunately, it was a tonal thing.
That's a shame.
That what they'd achieved, what Lord and Miller had achieved with Michael and this character, just does not fit into what Lucasfilm are shaping now with Ron Howard. So I suspect this character might be cut completely or could need to be recast if he's going to be kept in now.
Shame.
We can move on. We can go back so we can kick this around, but there's word this week that Michael also let slip Emilia Clarke's character name. Now, the reason I'm jumping to this now is because it puts in context how important his character seems to be to the overall story, because he was referring to his character being a connection between Alden Ehrenreich's Han Solo and Emilia Clarke's character, who he said is named Kira.
Right.
So that's another piece of news from the Han Solo camp this week, that her character name might be Kira. Okay. So if his character is a link between the two, you would think that's important enough to recast and continue having that presence in the story, right?
Mm. I've read, though, that it's been chopped.
Yes, he has.
No, but I also read the character had been chopped.
I read that it was the character too, but then, I mean, it could be that they're mistaken or whatever, or it could just be that it's not entirely clear because it's a little bit vague.
Well, the story, they might cut the character, and because maybe no one's really that invested in that character without Michael attached to it. Maybe it just doesn't matter. We'll move the story responsibilities across to another character, and maybe that's going to be Clint Howard's character. It could be anything, couldn't it? Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Clint's got to be in it somewhere.
Well, apparently they've found something for him. Was that in last week's show?
Or the week before,
maybe.
Yeah.
Is Dad still with us? Because he's on Millennium as well.
I don't know.
Ron Howard's dad usually makes an appearance in a Ron Howard movie.
Does he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting. No, he's definitely confirmed Clint.
I don't know if his father's still with us.
I'm not sure.
I'll look it up now.
But this was unfortunate. I think I'm a huge fan of Michael K. Williams. I've not seen The Wire, unfortunately. It's one of those things that's on my list I have to get to. But Boardwalk Empire, he was exceptional, and he does sort of quiet menace really, really well. And I was so looking forward to seeing him in this film. And he described the character as being part human, part animal. It's a very interesting sort of description.
So some motion cap stuff, possibly.
Possibly. I mean, it could have been done. You've seen what they can do.
Just prosthetics,
with the prosthetics and animatronics, so they could really perform miracles with that stuff now.
Rance Howard, incidentally, is still alive.
Oh, superb.
And turns 90 next year.
Wow. 90.
Yeah.
So what was the other thing that was mentioned about this character in Michael's interview? It said about it being a connection between Kira and Han. Oh, I forget what the other thing was.
Completely crap.
Yeah. No, it's such a shame to see Michael cut from this project. But this was the other thing he mentioned as well. He said he really admires Lucasfilm. He enjoyed working with them. He wouldn't rule out a return to Star Wars for him in the future. And he feels that they've parted with a good relationship. So he thinks that they would have him back and he would come back in a heartbeat. So maybe we'll be lucky enough to see Michael K. Williams in a future Star Wars movie when the schedules are a little bit friendlier. Yeah. Gutted, really?
Did I lose
gutted?
No,
you're still there, Steve.
I'm still here.
So with this, we'll just go back to this Kira thing.
Maybe next week I won't be with that attitude.
Well, I'm actually looking for more news, and I'm not finding any updates on that. So.
No, okay. Well, this Kira name. So we spoke about it earlier that it was Rey's original name in The Force Awakens, or it was at least the placeholder used during the production. Yeah. But making StarWars.net are suggesting that it's actually Kura, K-U-R-A, rather than Kira, K-I-R-A. They've heard that from a supposed source at Pinewood. So it could be that Michael was misheard during his interview, or he misspoke during his interview. It could also be that the source at Pinewood is incorrect, but they're suggesting
they might have misheard it.
Yeah, they're suggesting that the name is actually Kura, which I think is a little bit more exotic than Kira. But Kira, I really like as a name anyway. So either way, I think we win. But it does seem like there's a lot more here than we could have expected. I did reach out to Ron Howard and Emilia Clarke yesterday with a cheeky tweet saying, "So is it Kira or Kura?" I thought just got to be in it to win it, and just take a big punt and see what happens, because they could have come back and said, "Oh, it's Kura." And it would have been a score.
I was hoping Emilia Clarke would be mixed up and go, it's Ben D. Knee.
Mm-hmm.
It's prank calling Jon Snow all afternoon.
Okay, right. Last bit of news of the week then, and this is about the title for the Han Solo movie, the as yet untitled Han Solo movie, as Ron Howard keeps calling it. It might actually be called, drum roll please, Han Solo. This came out in a Lego document this week. It was leaked. It's like a Lego product book, which I think it might be like a marketing thing for retailers. And it had a whole page that had the splash of the title treatment for Han Solo, a Star Wars story, and it had private and confidential or confidential stamped across it, as if it's not final. So, kind of looks like that might just be the plain and simple.
Ideal ingredients
title.
for a leak.
Ideal ingredients for a leak. Also, ideal for a spoof that can get somebody a lot of traffic on their Twitter feed, right? So not necessarily. Not necessarily to be taken as gospel, I would think, at this stage.
Yeah.
But what do we reckon? Is it, if it was just Han Solo, a Star Wars story, is that too bland?
I liked it when it was just Solo.
Me too. I loved Solo.
Yeah.
Solo.
Yeah, Process should just, whatever the title is, just put it out in Huttese.
I sort of was hoping they would go down the Indiana Jones route and make it Han Solo and...
Yes, I would have loved that.
No.
But then it has to be like a self-contained adventure as well, doesn't it?
Well,
which I suppose
Indiana Jones wasn't. The pulpy things, that they all kind of connected up, didn't they?
Yeah, but they were self-contained.
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
Plot lines within the film.
That would work for me.
And incidentally...
It would work for me too. I'm just saying...
The only Indiana Jones film that mattered didn't have the word Indiana Jones in it.
Razor Lost Ark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was never always called Indiana Jones and the Razor Lost Ark. That doesn't seem right.
Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I know.
Stop drawing things. This will not be included in the show notes. Steve,
I'm going on mute.
whilst you're drawing rude pictures, did you want to comment on the potential title for the Han Solo film?
Not as good as your ship name, don't get me wrong.
No. What is the previous name for the Millennium Falcon? Because it's had about 10 names. What was it called at that time?
The Millennium Falcon? It was called the Millennium Falcon. Names.
No, it hasn't. I know it might not be 100% canon, but it's been called loads of different names. So since it was built 60 years before A New Hope. Because I watched the video on the Millennium Falcon's history.
Is this from Legends?
Well, this is the thing. It's on YouTube if you have a look. But it has been called loads and loads of different names. The Millennium Falcon's just the late one.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
Well, it seems fitting if it's an old ship, then that's probably the case. But,
yeah.
I'm not familiar with any of that.
And there was a time when Lando owned it, it was called such and such, and I can't remember. And I'll have a look. Keep talking about yourself.
I don't think that's going to be canon. I think it's going to be the Falcon. I never got the impression from their exchange in Empire that it was anything but the Falcon to Lando.
Yeah, I think it always was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking now. He won it he lost it in a game of Tobacco.
Tobacco, yeah.
Back. I'm trying to see what the names were now, but of course it might, like I say, it might not have been canon. There's a really good video on YouTube about it, and they say, look, pinch of salt. This is this is the history based on all of the references.
Yeah, it was once called Horatio, and Clive.
Well, possibly.
I'm not going to invest too much in that, Steve, because I think that might, if that's Legends, then it's not going to reflect too much on this. But in terms of this film just being called Han Solo, a Star Wars story, does that work for you?
Oh, Tantive 5. There you go. That's what it's called. Wasn't it? Or it was the prototype Tantive 5.
In the production.
Or Tantive 4, sorry.
The Tantive 4 was supposed to be that model was supposed to be the Millennium Falcon before they come up with the saucer-shaped ship. Yeah.
So I'm so glad they changed it, because that Fantasy 4 is pant compared to the Millennium Falcon.
Your mind is like being lost in a maze, isn't it, Steve?
No, with a maze, you do get a sense there's an exit.
Well, there's an exit from this. Let's wrap this thing up. So, any more comments on this Han Solo potential title? Bearing in mind it's just a leak in a toy book at the moment.
I'd much prefer it to just be Solo.
Yeah, and I think I would like the big pulpy Han Solo and Adventure at Star's End or whatever. I like that sort of stuff personally, but
a bit like an Indiana Jones type.
Exactly, yeah.
I like Solo. I think Paul's bang on with that.
And Rob.
All
right. Okay. Paul, we're going to wrap up. You jump back in?
Hey, I was in.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were muted. All right. Let's back out of this episode then. So, thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week, you wonderful people. Don't forget, you can leave us a 5-star review if you think it's worth it in iTunes and take advantage of the Ron Burgundy guarantee. So whatever you write in a 5-star review, we'll read as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote something like a blog or a podcast, that is the place to do it. You can email us your questions and comments to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on one of our many social channels, such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and many, many more. So with that said, guys, where can people find you between episodes?
You can find me on YouTube, on Wild About Nature, and Twitter, Stephen_Ware, or Wild About Nature.
You'll find me in all the regular social network plants as Movie Score News.
Sorry, is it me?
Rob is dead.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realise you were done, Paul. That was really fast. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rob Wade. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rob Wade Vision, and everything else I do at emotionally14.com.
Awesome.
And then search that, YouTube, iTunes, blah, blah, blah.
Hasn't finished.
You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at talkstarwars. Stick around for the promo from the Star Wars Commonwealth. There are plenty of shows there that are well worth your time, and you can find them at starwarscommonwealth.com. We will be back next week, hopefully with even more juicy Star Wars news and gossip. Until then, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at starwarscommonwealth.com alongside
the Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
and the Nerd Room Podcast.
Head to starwarscommonwealth.com. Take your first steps to a larger world.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.